Now, Tate did a video review of a Burris scope, and he got lots of grief on this thing and lots of people asking questions about it. This is one of those modern high-tech scopes that has all kinds of digital data inside of it to help you precisely put your reticle on target at different distances. I don't remember all the different features of it, but it's it's one of the most innovative on the market today, really high tech, and in some states this is illegal. So we got a lot of stuff, comments, questions from people about this whole affair. Let's just see what we're dealing with here. This is Poor Fat Man. Poor Fat Man says, the states that do not allow this scope are evil states. They should care more about clean, ethical kills more than anything else for the animals. I think what Poor Fat Man here is saying is that he has heard that some states do not allow you to use electronic scopes like this for hunting. And he thinks that's kind of silly because such a scope would enhance your chances for making a clean kill. And he has a point there, but other people are going to weigh in on this, and we're going to weigh in on it ourselves here in a little bit. So let's just tie it all together first. So our next one is Lee, who says, I find it ironic that Burris, who makes these scopes in Colorado, well, Colorado has made those scopes illegal. So if the scope has a computer chip in it, it's considered a smart rifle. And that's true. And now we hear from, oh, God has got a gun? What? Oh, God, he's got a gun. What a name. Kind of a beginner here, but why would this scope be banned or illegal? Is this one of those unfair advantage things in hunting? I thought you were limited to what and how many animals you take. So what's the point in pretending that the playing field is level? Here in Canada, there is a rule about hunting ducks. You can have only 3 shots in a shotgun, despite the gun holding perhaps 5. So what is the point of such petty rules? In competition, I understand, but what if you're like me and you don't care what the other guys are shooting at or why? You just shoot targets because you like it? So as long as it's done safely, why ban a scope? Isn't accuracy the goal? Why not ban all scopes with more than, say, 15 power zoom? You see what I'm getting at here? Yeah. Oh, God, he's got a gun. I do see what you're getting at there. And, let me address a little bit of it right now. One thing I want to jump to is the duck thing. It's kind of off the scope issue, but it does point to some regulations that people sometimes don't understand. That one is because when these regulations were put into effect, pump-action shotguns with long magazines that could hold 5 or 6 shots, those were coming into vogue, and they made it a lot easier to kill a lot of ducks. And these were market hunting days, so they were really efficient at just killing ducks to sell on the market, and of course that led to a severe decline in populations. So they said, how can we limit their effectiveness? They were trying to limit their ability to easily take ducks. And when we got away from market hunting and put the emphasis on sport hunting, which means there are rules and regulations to tame things down, it was kind of deemed important to limit how many shots you could get off at a flock of ducks or geese to minimize wounding loss. So let's say you have a limit of 5 ducks a day or 3 or 10 or whatever it was or is, and you have a gun that can hold 5 rounds and you go bang, 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 you might kill 3 ducks cleanly and then cripple or wound a couple because you're tempted to use those last 2 shots when the ducks are getting a little too far out to be taken out cleanly. So they were trying to eliminate the waste from any kind of wounding loss by limiting how many shots. So what that basically does is it forces you to wait for the perfect shot opportunity, decoy those ducks in closely so that you're going to make a good clean shot for 1 or 2, save that last round for finishing one off if you have to, and doesn't take long and you've got your limit anyway. It's no longer market hunting for volume. You're trying to enjoy the experience of being a good hunter. Ties it all together with sportsmanship. So that's what's going on there. Now back to the scope. Why should you limit the technology on a scope? Kind of a similar thing. It mostly has to do with the ethics of the hunt. When does the hunt really turn into more of a killing event, a harvest, more than a traditional hunt in which you want to concentrate on being a hunter rather than a technician. You think about it, we have tools today that would enable us to get our venison without all of the whatever we're doing with boots and saddles and, and packs on our backs and getting out in the field and finding the game. We can just send a drone up to get it. If you're taking the hunt out of the hunt, that's the issue. And that's where they're starting to draw lines on this stuff. Years and years ago, when we began establishing rules for what a hunter should be or what sportsmanship was, essentially we made hunting into something like a game, a baseball game or a football game. By that I mean it's not frivolous. We don't just go hunting because, hey, let's just have some fun throwing a ball around or shooting some animals. No, it's not about that. It is about boundaries and limitations on how we shoot those animals. We're no longer depending on getting a deer every week to feed our family. We might get 1 to 5 deer a year to feed our family, put them in the freezer, and we've got plenty of food. But mostly we want to get outdoors, reconnect with nature, become hunters, integral parts of nature, playing our role in it. And then we will set limits on technology because it makes it too easy to get our game. Our hunt lasts for 5 minutes if you've got high technology. If you're going out with a handmade bow and stone points, you may have to hunt for weeks on end to get your deer. But if you use a high-powered rifle with a high-powered scope, and then the scope is digital, so it automatically zooms right into the perfect distance and the right hold, and all you have to do is pull the trigger, you've just layered too much technology between you and the experience of being a hunter. We can argue about this stuff endlessly. For some people, they would say, I am cheating because I use a bolt-action rifle with a scope. And that makes it too easy. I can kill my deer pretty reliably out to 300, maybe 400 yards. Well, the next person says, well, you're using a bigger scope than Ron, and it has electronics in it and a computer that figures out the distance, a laser rangefinder, and adjusts the scope's reticle to be perfectly on at 600, 800 yards. Suddenly, that person no longer has to hunt as hard. He doesn't have to be involved with nature. He can sit up on a hillside, wait till something steps out at 800 yards, and kill it. End of the hunt. Does that really matter? If the biologists are setting the seasons and the bag limits, so what? As long as you're protecting the resource, whose business is it to say how you should take that deer? That is an argument we can have and always do, probably will always be there. But as a general rule, I think what we're trying to do as a hunting community is to retain some of the woodsmanship, the field craft, the Daniel Boone part of being a hunter, because that's what puts us back in touch with nature. And I don't know about you guys, but I have analyzed quite often, quite deeply, why I hunt. And at the heart of it, it's this desire to make a connection with what I call the real world, because it is, before all of these layers of technology came between us and nature. That's what I'm looking for. So I strike a balance with my bolt-action rifles and scopes, but I don't go too far in one way or the other. So each of us has to make up our own minds on these. But I understand why state fish and game agencies set these regulations. You can't shoot deer out of a helicopter. You can't shoot deer with super technology and a scope, however they decide.
I have a comment on that.
Sure.
Because I like the red dot. Mm-hmm. What do you call that? The
illuminated reticle?
The illuminated reticle, because of my eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. And once again, it brings up the issue of where do you draw the line? And some states will determine that it's just too much of an advantage. And then you'll say, well, I'm a little bit handicapped with my vision, so why should I have to suffer?
What I could do is get closer, and then it wouldn't be as much of an issue.
Yeah.
So maybe it's my lack of hunting skills.
Well, but you could say the same for me using a regular scope with an unilluminated reticle. My eyes are good enough yet that I can easily put that crosshair where it belongs. But what about someone who, let's say, is can't hike, can't climb mountains? Should he be denied the right to go sheep hunting, or should he be allowed to use some sort of a mechanical device to help him get up the mountain? Maybe he can take a helicopter ride and they can drop him up there where the sheep live or something. Is that too much of an advantage? Should we make exceptions for that? And then, in my experience, many states, or not, maybe most states do this. They'll say, well, if you're in a chair, a wheelless chair, you're not ambulatory, you are allowed to go out with a wheelchair powered device. Some of them will make exceptions for folks who don't have the manual dexterity or even the appendages with which to draw a bow, and they let them use some other device that would draw that bow for them, a mechanical one. All sorts of exceptions in using technology that I think are reasonable. But these are all good points that we can argue, discuss, evaluate. The point, I think, is, number one, manage the resource, the biology, the wildlife resource. Let's not abuse that. The idea is to keep as much of it as we can, improve the numbers and all that good stuff. Then how do we enjoy this experience without making it too much of an unfair advantage? Lots of areas to cover on all that stuff, but this is why these topics like this, high technology scopes like this Burris that Tate covered, are so incendiary, shall we say. People get really worked up about this. Okay. Well, let's move on here. Let's see what we've got. Oh my gosh, here's some more on high-tech scopes. This is from Zeven. If you really want to be blown away by scope technology, you need to see the new Vortex scopes on the M7277 rifles. Integrated laser rangefinder, an actual mini ballistics computer lasers the target, and the scope itself gives you a live reticle impact point. You put the dot on the target and hit. It's just like a video game. It has a heads-up display inside of the scope like a fighter pilot uses, and another squad mates lays the target. You can see their target marks. It's incredible. The M7 rifle, on the other hand, but the scope tech, now that's a winner. See,
they're teaching people to be snipers.
Well, and what's wrong with being a sniper? I mean, that's part of being a good shot. Where do you define sniper versus shooter? You want an inaccurate shooter?
Sniper versus hunter.
And what?
Sniper versus hunter.
Yeah, and then that's where that gray area comes in. I'm talking about the Daniel Boone Fieldcraft hunter, stalking game, getting close. And then we're talking about the guy who's sitting on the hillside shooting out 1,200 yards with all the laser scopes and all the rest of it. Where do you draw the line?
I think it's up to the manufacturers, to podcasters, people like you, to emphasize the skill of being a hunter.
Yeah, that's probably true. I think it's up to the individual hunter to draw his or her line within the legal requirements of the jurisdiction in which you're hunting. In other words, if your state allows you to use an illuminated reticle on a scope with a computer in it and all the rest of it, and you feel comfortable doing it, okay, go for it. But I do think as a community, as hunters, I think we do really need to stay hold of our roots. They've often said that when you do surveys of people, do you like hunting or not? Are hunters evil or not, and all the rest of it, the closer their perception of a hunter as being sort of a Daniel Boone or a Native American Ishi, that famous Indian in California who was such a great close-range stalker that even though he wasn't a great bow shot, he was able to get so close to game that he could bag it. People respect that. That's a real hunter. How you define it, I don't know, but the closer you are to the primitive style of stalker, tracker, get close to game, know the woods, know how to read the winds, all the other things that put you in touch with nature, more of a natural person, a natural hunter, rather than a high technology, I'm taking advantage of science to take my animals, and I really don't know that much about being a hunter. There's where the issue comes in. So, hey guys, weigh in on this one. We'll discuss it some more, but I do think that we need to all strike some kind of a balance. So, there you go.